Hello again. I'm Pam. I'm director over at Huntington Surrey School, small private high school here in Austin, Texas. I've been teaching for about 20 years, and I'm just putting these little videos out to help with people who may want to be doing their own curriculum. They've just started homeschooling. They're not sure how to go about it. So I just thought I could help out. Today I was going to go ahead and do an example of how I go about lesson planning for middle schoolers. I ran my own little small private middle school for a few years there, and then they all moved on to high school, so I moved on with them. I'm doing high school right now again. I wanted to show y'all how I go about this. What I really like to do is as much thematic integration as possible. So what that means is that you want to look at each core area that you can. So that's language arts, social studies, math, and science. And sometimes you can fit it all in. Sometimes it's a little more difficult, but and oftentimes for me, the math would, generally, end up being obviously separate lessons because that's more procedural. But if you can find a hands-on way to, go about teaching that concept, that's great too. You can always get, as creative as you want to when you're homeschooling, which is pretty awesome. So what I did also is, I tried to make things as project-based as I could, and leaving those projects open-ended. So the goal was, because every kiddo was different, is just, here's the list of things that I need you to explore, that I want you to learn about, and your job is to play teacher and somehow teach it back to me. That's the goal. So whether you're teaching it back to me, as writing, if you're giving me a lecture, whatever way you want to teach it back is fine, as long as you show me that you now have the knowledge. And that's one of the best ways, to assess learning, is having kids teach it back to you. And I just would like to give them as much freedom to show me, use their own talents and their own strengths to choose how they were going to do that. So I want to show you an example of like a project that I had, the kids do. So we do a screen share here of how it all started. So a lot of times when I'm doing my planning for these, I will go ahead and look at the TEKS and the National Common Core. The TEKS are state standards here in Texas. And I just simply do a Google search for the grade level that I'm doing. So in this case, this was 8th grade, so I did a Google search for 8th grade social studies TEKS. A lot of my projects come from either social studies, sorry, there's a lawnmower going by. Apologize for that. So a lot of times I kind of source my project inspiration for through social studies or science, and then the rest kind of flows from there. So for this, I went ahead, I Googled social studies 8th grade TEKS, and I went ahead, knowledge and skills are sort of the nitty gritty in these sections of what the kids are supposed to know, like what topics. So in this case, we'd already gone through several of the major eras, and now we were looking at the American Revolution. So I wanted the kids to know about the American Revolution. So what we did was, and down here it goes into more detail of what was going on. So I also decided that I wanted to combine some language arts in here. So for that, I just Googled 8th grade Common Core language arts standards. And, you know, that lands you here to this site. So I knew that I wanted the kids going online, doing some research. So if you go to grade 8 here, these are the things that I wanted the kids to be able to do. I wanted them to give me some textual evidence, you know, citing things from what they had read. Obviously, if you're looking at an article about the American Revolution, you need to be able to determine what the central idea of that was. Analyze how text makes connections among and distinctions between individuals, ideas, or events. So all this comes into play just with reading something that's nonfiction. So as they're doing this project, they are, and we're discussing what they're reading, you're hitting all of these things, okay? And then came the writing part. I wanted to make sure I had some writing here. So I can go to grade 8 here for the writing, and it's write arguments, support claims. So there's different kinds of types that they're supposed to be doing. So this is if they're basically here doing like an opinion kind of piece. But I really wanted to focus with this project on them writing informative explanatory text to examine, you know, causes for the American Revolution. So with this section in mind here, and again, what I did when I was planning is I printed these things out, and I would just literally, okay, this unit's gonna check this box off, we're gonna cover this, 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 this. And as they taught back what they had learned, then I could check off, yes, they've mastered that skill clearly. Yes, they've clearly mastered that skill. So this is what I would do here. So in this project, I gave them this. So I decided I was going to have them be your journalist and editor for your local newspaper. The year is 1776. It is your civic duty to inform your fellow colonists of the ongoings in your local community, colony, America, and the world. And I added that in there because it's a personal thing with me. I just feel like here in our country, we're so just focused in on ourselves and not paying attention to what is going on in the rest of the world. So I wanted the kids to also explore that during that time, what was happening over here, what was happening over there. I really love, for a very general overview of that, I really love, it is Time Maps. This map of the world thing is an awesome resource because you can go through you know, different eras here, and it will take you to, you know, what was going on in various parts of the world. So anyway, you can go through here and you can kind of continue through, and like you can click on any of these places, and you know, it takes you in and you can look at details, and it's really, really cool. So anyway, that's a little bit of a side tangent there, but it's called Time Maps. It's a really good resource just so you can kind of have a worldview of what's going on during, you know, various eras. So it takes you, you know, here I can look and see, you know, what's going on in North America in 1648, what's going on in South America. Doesn't cover all of the dates, but it's just a good thing so the kids can kind of get a general idea here and have a little bit more of a worldview. Anyway, so back to this. So this is one way to do it. If I have a kiddo, let's say really, you know, doesn't want to write, you know, newspaper articles or things like that. I might give them a little leeway. Maybe they only need to just write me one article as a compromise so that I'm still hitting all those standards, but maybe they want to build a Minecraft village. So showing, you know, this was you know, this was what Boston was like, and, you know, make a little, you know, town in Minecraft and be able to tell me all of those things. That's fine. I'm still going to make them do a little bit of writing, but maybe not as much, just enough to hit those Common Core standards for writing. So here, this is the information I wanted. So news of the day, an opinion piece, pro-revolution, against the revolution, a poem. This gives them a little bit of creative writing in here. News of the latest technology developments, and that, you know, could be anywhere. Article about world news. You know, technology that starts to get us a little bit into the science and math if we wanted to pursue that. An article giving an overview of the state of all the colonies, some local news. I thought it would be fun just so they could get a sense of, you know, what life was like, a little article about cooking. And also this was a little bit of, it was a good technology practice so they could learn how to lay things out in columns like you would see in a newspaper. We also ended up doing art with this and learning about cross-hatching and, you know, kind of how people illustrated things and that type of style. So that was kind of cool too. So I wanted them to talk about slavery, Native Americans, 7-Year War, Peace of Paris, you know, Pontiac's Rebellion, Sugar Act, Stamp Act, Boston Massacre, Tea Act, Boston Tea Party, Intolerable Acts. So King George III. I just wanted them to mention all of these things in these articles. So, and then this was a rubric. You know, rubrics are really handy when you're doing lesson plans to make sure that they, you know, you have a little bit, you know, they have structure, they know what they're aiming for. And so this is an example of what a student turned in. So she picked North Carolina. I let them choose what colony they wanted to be from. So they used primary resources, secondary resources to, you know, do this. So pro-revolutionaries, you know, they did an opinion piece here. So it was hitting a bunch of standards. This was cool. Again, they did their cooking article. She drew this little, you know, little style of a little submarine there, talking about technology. Did a poem. I scanned all this stuff in for her. So anyway, it was, the kids enjoyed doing it. It was a fun project for everybody. You know, maybe somebody, you know, instead, like maybe they don't want to do Minecraft Village, maybe they want to set it up like a newscast and dress up like, you know, somebody from the 1770s. You know, all of that is fine. Like I said, as long as they get some writing in, they don't have to do this much. But this is a way where you're incorporating your social studies and your language arts really in there. And if I wanted to, you know, I may go ahead and look, and like I said, sometimes this is possible, sometimes it's not, to get in Science TEKS 8th grade to work it in. But, you know, let's say I wanted to see if I could work in some science. So again, I would just Google, and if you're not from Texas, you would have whatever state standards your state goes by. Or maybe you're doing national science standards, which is awesome too. So I'm gonna look for the knowledge and skills. So this is more lab work, which you know, like, well, one way to go about it is to, you know, find out in that era, you know, what scientific developments were being made, and you know, pretend you're you know, you're witnessing this phenomenon. How would you go about doing a field experiment for it? So you absolutely could do something actually with that. So this is all planning and investigation. This is about, okay, so this is like Earth's layers. This is research on scientific thought and society, including history of science and contributions of scientists. So that is where it came in as far as what developments were going on. So that hits that standard. You know, you can look up things like earth science. You know, what did they know at the time about this during the 1700s? You know, maybe somebody, I would research and see if somebody had thought they'd found gold. And so you could you know, you could mix in and integrate here with that kind of stuff. So a lot of times there's a way to take these other issues and see. I would also look up for, since there's a lot of earth science in 8th grade, you know, were there any major earthquakes in, you know, during the time of the American Revolution, anywhere in the world? So they could research that. So there's lots of ways you can, you know, hit these things, you know, or just look up, you know, yeah, what do people know about plate tectonics and earthquakes in the 1700s? So there's always ways to integrate. And again, integration is good because it really helps them connect and retain ideas. And it's, you know, it works for all kids. Your gifted kids, this is open-ended enough so your gifted kids can really take deep dives into things and explore what they are really interested in. And, you know, maybe get passionate about something. So, I mean, this is a great way for all kids to learn and explore. And, you know, depending on what their, these projects are open-ended enough. So skill level, you know, it's okay if, you know, just knowing your kid and what you can expect out of them and how to push them just a little bit further out of their comfort zone. Not a lot. Again, we never want tears with any of this stuff. We want it to be enjoyable and interesting, and, you know, the kids can watch movies about this. You know, you can read books with them. They can search the internet. You know, this is, in my experience, a much better way than just, you know, here's a textbook, you know, answer these questions. Not to say that I think that that skill is important for when they're, you know, later on. They're going to need that skill to read a textbook, you know, if they're going to college and everything, and just answer questions from the book. And that's fine. And, you know, one of the ways that you can practice that skill too is, you know, giving them an article to read and, you know, just coming up with a few comprehension questions for them to, you know, to go back in and write, you know, their answers and complete sentences and everything else that a teacher would be looking for, especially in college. That's basically, you know, a way that, you know, doing these projects is a way I feel like to get the kids more engaged, more feeling like they have their own autonomy over what it is that they're researching, that they feel like they have a choice and that they're getting to explore the things that they chose. So I keep things pretty open-ended. If you have any comments for me or any feedback or any requests, please feel free to email me at info@huntingtonsurrey.org. It's HUNTINGTONSURREY, Huntington Surrey. So it's info@huntingtonsurrey.org. And I'm hoping that these videos help you, and I'm taking requests if you know, there's anything that you'd like me to cover, you know, how to teach kids how to do division, long division, or you know, how to regroup, or you know, how to teach this particular novel, anything like that. Please feel free, and I'm happy to do a short little video on those. Thanks so much, and hope you're all doing well.